thank everyone for joining this webinar today. I'm really excited to review today's topic, which is really something we hear a lot from customers. And it really comes down to, is Microsoft security sufficient for my overall SecOps? And by ways of introductions, you have myself, Stacy Leidwinger. I'm the Vice President of Portfolio Marketing here at Secureworks. And joined with me is Stefan Wancha. He's our Principal Security Engineer and works very closely with our Microsoft customers. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and we'll get them at the end. I want to start off because I find this stat to be really interesting. I was at the Gartner Risk Summit this year, and I think almost every analyst used this stat. So if you were there, you should be familiar with it. But what they found is that over 75% of organizations were pursuing a security vendor consolidation strategy in 2022. That was up from close to 30% in 2020. What was also interesting is that while organizations are looking to consolidate the number of vendors and tools, spending overall in security is up. So what's driving that? If we double down on what's really driving the consolidation, there's a study out there by Dark Reading where they interviewed over 75 global organizations. And what they found is, one, many organizations, roughly 65%, were really trying to improve their overall security posture. And the key challenge they were facing was as the IT landscape expanded into cloud, more identity solutions, SaaS applications, they simply didn't have enough people to monitor point solutions that were looking at each of those individual areas. And so they were really trying to identify, how do we go with a more consolidated or platform solution to help us? And that was one of the drivers then. 41% of organizations were really looking to consolidate some of their cloud tooling around a SASE type solution. And others were looking to really consolidate some of their monitoring capabilities with a extended detection response or XDR platform. And of course, spend is part of it. 20%, 29% actually, were looking to reduce spending on overall licensing, thus looking at the consolidation strategy. And so when you look holistically, we really start to see this pendulum shift that's happening here in security. It's going from once what was looked at best of breed. How can I pick the best of breed point products to monitor different individual areas of my security solution sets? So I can look at something maybe for email and cloud and identity separately. Also might be looking for things around, how do I make sure that I handle my edge cases? The challenge was that many organizations are facing right now is that's created kind of this heterogeneous and siloed environment. And it becomes really costly to integrate those point solutions, monitor, and even configure and get the expertise that's needed. And so we see this consolidated single vendor approach starting to happen, or platform approach. We're looking for a single solution that's going to integrate everything, take more ownership. That means there's less acquisition cost, less maintenance cost, less vendor maintenance, to be truthful. It's also what many organizations find faster to deploy. Now, I'm not saying one solution is always better than another. It really depends on the organization and use cases, but we certainly are seeing this movement. And we're not the only ones. Microsoft specifically is having a large leap where organizations truly are starting to consolidate many of their security tooling within their Microsoft 365 Defender and E5 licensing model. Stefan, maybe you could dive a little bit deeper on why organizations are looking at that and what's all included within the Microsoft licensing packaging.
Yes, definitely. We're going to look a bit more in depth at Defender. As you mentioned, Stacy, what Microsoft is proposing through its E5 or E5 security licensing bundles is a set of modern security features covering various areas of the hybrid environment. And while they do not on their own address the entire hybrid IT and potentially multi-cloud landscape that we see organizations using today, they do cover critical security features in a consolidated and integrated way. Microsoft 365 Defender brings together four main Defender capabilities revolving around endpoint, identity, email, and cloud applications. Perhaps the core component of Microsoft 365 Defender is Defender for Endpoint. Defender for Endpoint is an integrated agent that delivers features such as next-generation antivirus, attack surface reduction, and endpoint detection and response. Moreover, it also acts as a rich source of information for Defender for Cloud apps helping with insight into activity and traffic that users generate towards various cloud-based applications. And this actually is one of the examples of how the various Defender 365 features work together out of the box. Defender for Identity uses on-premises Active Directory signals and telemetry in order to detect mostly Microsoft or Active Directory specific threats related to various concerning behaviors, compromised identities, and potentially malicious insider actions. Think about attack vectors that leverage techniques such as pass the hash, golden ticket, reconnaissance, brute force, or identity theft. Then we have Defender for Office 365, which is natively integrated into the Office environment, including also collaboration tools such as SharePoint or Teams, and protects against threats coming in via any of these environments. And finally, Defender for Cloud Apps helps you monitor and detect concerns related to how your users access and interact with SaaS-based applications. It provides various cloud access security broker capabilities and beyond, integrating with and making use of endpoint and network telemetry, as well as third-party cloud applications. Microsoft 365 Defender promotes consolidation by bringing all these features together into a centralized view, providing cross-correlation investigation, hunting, and automation capabilities. This is something that I would encourage any E5 customer to leverage because it comes free of charge with their already existing license. However, as good and as consolidated a set of features Microsoft 365 Defender might bring, we cannot deny the fact that there is so much more out there in the modern hybrid environment that we still need to take into account, as well as at the same time making sure that we are able to timely review, analyze, investigate, and respond to the output that Defender provides. Here are a few questions that I would encourage any organization to consider when asking itself, is it enough? First of all, does Defender cover it all, or do I need a multi-EDR support? Oftentimes, we encounter situations where Defender only covers mostly the user endpoints, but not necessarily the servers or the virtual machines, especially when they are deployed in other third-party clouds such as AWS. And talking about other clouds, you should ask yourself, how feasible is it to address the security needs of those third-party cloud environments with Microsoft 365 Defender? Do I need perhaps an extra layer of consolidation on top? That leads to the next question. Have I actually achieved visibility across my entire IT footprint? And even when it all goes well, just like with any security tool, I will still be faced with alerts and incidents that need to be investigated. What if I don't understand something? What if I have a question? What if I am uncertain? Do I have access to immediate real-time support? Actually, do I even have the resources to monitor and investigate and take timely response action 24/7? Better yet, am I able to be proactive? Am I able to hunt for those threats that are advanced and actually are able to potentially circumvent my preventative or detective measures? More often than not, the conclusion is that deploying Microsoft security tooling on its own will take you one step further in your cybersecurity journey, but will not address your entire cybersecurity needs. And that is the place or the moment when organizations start looking for a partner able to help them with filling in those gaps.
So, Stefan, as organizations look to potentially fill those gaps, what options do they have? I'm sure there's a whole slew of things that they could be considering.
Yes, indeed, but there's two main options that stand out. And let's start talking about Managed Sentinel first. Managed Sentinel is a managed service built on top of the Microsoft Sentinel SIEM platform. We tend to see that this can be a good fit, especially for Microsoft and Azure-centric environments, where organizations have complex technical requirements with a strong need for customization. Just like with most SIEM solutions, going down this route requires people, time, and often significant budgets. And there are not many organizations out there that can or even should consider this level of complexity and overhead when trying to achieve a streamlined outcome-based security service. Some of the drawbacks that we see with this approach revolve around significant and unpredictable costs, since SIEM solutions are licensed based on data volumes, and that also impacts in turn scoping and sizing. Many times compromises are actually made and data is being filtered out, creating visibility, response, and forensics gaps in an attempt to lower costs. SIEM solutions are also notorious for their complex deployment and reliance on customization. And to be honest, many of the more technology-oriented managed services providers, even if they are completely capable of deploying a Sentinel solution, they lack in terms of experience related to providing managed security services. But let me give you a different perspective and what organizations are now starting to turn to. And if we move to the next slide, we're going to see that because of the issues we have just highlighted, the favored option we see today in the market is MDR, which stands for Managed Detection and Response. Organizations are looking for a streamlined, outcome-based service, easy to scope and license, and easy to consume. For example, a user count-based licensing is strongly favored in contrast to data volume licensing. Having proprietary out-of-the-box threat intelligence and detection capabilities is also important, since that greatly reduces deployment and maintenance efforts, and also helps with achieving quick time to value. Speaking about time to value, things such as predictability, total cost of ownership, return on investment are increasingly more relevant for business decision makers. As we were discussing earlier, Microsoft does have an impressive set of security features bundled within their E5 license, which by all means can be considered the foundation for a good cybersecurity approach, but many times it makes a lot of sense to add a third-party independent service and technology on top. So provide meaningful integrations with E5, with Defender, Azure, Office 365, and Microsoft Active Directory, but at the same time correlate that with the extended non-Microsoft and potentially multi-cloud hybrid environment. Last but not least, the MDR provider needs to have modern cloud-native technology supporting the service and provide full access to the platform as well as to the customer data. But the service part is at least as important as the technology. The MDR providers that have experience in delivering managed services will have the SOC organization as one of their core functions, and that organization will be supported and complemented by strong and proven incident response expertise. That is what clearly differentiates providers able to deliver that end-to-end service from less experienced parties that are more centered around technology, such as many times managed Sentinel providers. But Stacy, perhaps you can tell us more about the Secureworks own MDR for Microsoft solution.
Absolutely, Stefan. And I spend quite a bit of time talking with our customers. In fact, we just recently had a customer advisory board, and almost all of our customers use some aspect of Microsoft. But really comes back down to, so why Secureworks? Why are you looking for an MDR provider to support you? And what they really come down to is what made the difference for Secureworks was our broad integrations and services, our deep expertise, as well as our partnership and collaboration within Microsoft. So let me double down on a couple of those things. First, if we look at the broad integrations, our MDR solution is built on top of an extended detection and response solution called Taegis. And I think, Stefan, you're going to go in depth a little bit more, but we really integrate into all of the key critical components of a Microsoft solution. We're looking at everything from Defender to Azure, Active Directory, as well as a number of other telemetry component parts that really fit into the solution set. On top of that, then, we offer 24/7 managed detection and response. We have a global SOC that speaks 70 different languages. We even have a dedicated SOC in Japan to support our Japanese customer base that have advanced security knowledge. And they're there really to help ensure that we're not only managing and detecting alerts from Microsoft, but everything else that might be coming in, whether an organization's using AWS or maybe they're using CrowdStrike as an endpoint for some of their other solution sets. We're pulling that all in together. Another big thing is that with our MDR offering, we are specialists when it comes to threat hunting and incident response. So we have a dedicated team that does monthly threat hunts for our customers, and with a small uplift for our elite service, could do them even more on a weekly basis and be dedicated to you. We also have a robust incident response team. In fact, our team is only one of 4 organizations that are certified both by the US and UK governments when it comes to incident response. Our customers have access to both teams, and both are leveraging Defender, Azure, Office 365, and have that deep expertise. Finally, we also have our adversarial testing team, and they can provide both proactive and reactive solutions to help with things like ransomware preparation, AD assessments. So really, from a one-stop shop being Secureworks, you get this expertise, and we can make sure that at the end of the day, we are monitoring not only your Microsoft environment, but your entire IT and OT landscape. If we drill into the next piece, it really comes down to that experience. So we support over 4,400 customers globally. When we look at our customer base, about 1,000 plus are really focused on a all-in Microsoft strategy, and they're using all of the different component parts we just spoke about. And so we have deep expertise. We see things, we see how the threat actors are attacking those areas and can react quickly to them. The other thing we have is our own, what we call counter threat unit, C2U, who is made up of over 50 plus global researchers that are researching threat actor behavior. That research and that analysis goes in to provide detectors, as well as some machine learning and AI-enabled detections. And we add that layer on top of Microsoft telemetry, which means that we're providing customers a higher layer of efficacy from when they're just using Microsoft alone.
And Stacy, let me double down on this one, because this point is actually really important, as it outlines the way that we are able to achieve a better outcome. Some of the things that we see organizations struggling with, even when deploying advanced features from Microsoft part of the E5 license, are firstly understanding what is indeed critical and what not, and secondly, running meaningful investigations. Based on our Taegis XDR and our MDR service, we were able to quantify the improvements we bring on top of the telemetry and alerts coming from the Microsoft environment. And what we are able to see is that from a detection standpoint, we trigger 3 times more high and critical alerts compared to the pre-processed Microsoft alerts. And we do that on the back of our own advanced Taegis detectors and our market-leading threat intelligence. So on the one hand, we detect more. However, that does not mean that we will flood our customers with endless number of alerts. No, we actually see that the service part achieves 98% reduction in terms of false positives and benign alerts. And finally, the outcome of our service is able to provide a 5 times better ratio in terms of false positives to true positives, compared to only pre-processed alerts coming from the Microsoft security tooling. So that is really one of the ways in which we are able to quantify the improvement from an outcome perspective that we bring on top of the Microsoft raw telemetry and pre-processed alerts.
Thank you, Stefan. I think it's important. You talk to customers every week, and this is the thing that makes the difference for them. And then adding on to that, it's not just about the detections and our expertise, it's also on the response actions. So within our offering for MDR, we have a number of response playbooks that are built out by our SOC, and we have a number of them that are just specific to Microsoft. These playbooks can be run on behalf of the customer if elected, or can be turned over for the customer to run. In addition to that, I mentioned our incident response team. We offer unlimited response and containment actions, which means that if a threat actor is detected, we are with you the whole way through, assuming that all that telemetry is already being monitored by us. The last point that we really hear customers say makes a difference is really down to the partnership and collaboration we have with Microsoft. I hope no one's walking away thinking that we're not fans of Microsoft. In fact, we're huge fans of what they're doing. It's just that there's opportunity to fill into some of those gaps. So we have the MISA partnership as well as being a MAP member, which means we get the additional threat intelligence from Microsoft. We're part of the Defender Professional Services Partner Program. But what gets me really excited is I mentioned our counter threat unit, which is dedicated researchers. We have dedicated Microsoft researchers that are actually Microsoft MVPs. That is all they do. They look at Microsoft solutions, they identify vulnerabilities, they watch threat actor behavior on how threat actors actually target Microsoft applications and solution sets. And they not only share that information so we can build detections and learnings of our own, but they work extremely closely when it comes to Microsoft's own threat intelligence team. There is open collaboration where we're sharing vulnerabilities we identify. Microsoft is sharing with us. And that allows us together to have a more holistic solution. Now, Stefan, I'm going to turn it back over to you because I've talked a little bit about how we do the integration, the technology that really powers our MDR service. Could you maybe walk through a little bit more of that?
Yes, let's do that. And for the next section, let's look a bit into how the design of our MDR for Microsoft service looks like. And we're going to start with the integrations. From an integration standpoint, we are going to look into all the relevant Microsoft Azure and Defender capabilities. If we look at Azure, we're going to integrate with Azure AD, and we're going to also read the Azure activity logs in order to get information related to what users are doing in certain subscriptions, for example, signing logs and directory audit logs. Then from a security standpoint, when we talk about Azure, we are going to look into Azure AD identity protection. And we know from experience that is one of the features that tends to generate a lot of false positives. We're going to take that information, we're going to analyze it, we're going to investigate it, and we're going to make sure we only come to our customers with the real security incidents, and that's what we're going to highlight. And if the organization chooses to use also Azure Sentinel for a specific subset of their infrastructure, we're also going to take alerts from that. Moving forward, if we talk about Defender, from a Defender standpoint, we are probably one of the only, if not the only true MDR provider that is able to leverage full Defender telemetry. And that's a very important point because there's many solutions that integrate with Defender for endpoint, but the majority only look at alerts. We take the entire telemetry and we apply our detection and our capabilities on top of that, which brings a lot of added value and a lot of visibility within the detection and response process. We're not going to ignore the other Defender components, of course. We're going to look into the alerts coming from Defender for Cloud Apps, Defender for Cloud, Defender for Identity, as well as Defender for Office 365. And talking about Office 365, we're going to integrate with Office 365 as well, not only from an alerts perspective, but we will also take the raw telemetry coming from Exchange Online, as well as, for example, other collaboration tools such as OneDrive, SharePoint, or Teams. Last but not least, a lot of organizations still use on-premise infrastructures. So we're also going to be looking into Microsoft Active Directory on-premise. We're going to look into Windows security, event IDs, DNS logs, DHCP logs, and Internet Information Services, so web servers. And all of that really gives us a comprehensive view across the entire Microsoft landscape. Moving forward, if we look now on the left-hand side, we're not going to stop at integrating only with Microsoft-specific capabilities. We will look into every corner of the modern hybrid environment. Endpoint and servers are going to be part of our scope, not only Microsoft, but also Linux and Mac, for example. Even more on those servers, we're going to support a multi-EDR environment, which means that you can use Defender for Endpoint for your E5 licensed endpoints. But it's not uncommon to see that on servers or on other third-party cloud virtual machines, organizations choose to use a different EDR or even our own Taegis EDR. That comes free of charge with the Taegis platform. And from our platform and services standpoint, we actually encourage organizations to use the EDR that makes the most sense for each part of their environment. We will look at network traffic, of course, firewalls, IPS devices, but also modern SASE solutions, for example. We have a lot of integrations into Azure, as we just explained, but we will not overlook other cloud environments. AWS and Google, for example, are two of the other major vendors that we have deep integrations with. You might be using Office 365 as your main email platform, but many organizations choose to complement that with a dedicated email security solution, such as Mimecast or Proofpoint. That is also something we're going to be looking into integrating with and extracting information, telemetry, and alerts from that. And I actually think that we should move to the next slide because that's going to better show, yes, as I was saying, we have a lot of integrations and it's over 100 out of the box third-party vendors and solutions that we support. And one of the most important aspects that provides flexibility and predictability is that you can integrate as many third-party tools and solutions as relevant for your environment at no additional cost. We will only scope based on the number of EDR enrolled endpoints, and that's about it. And to be honest, I do not know of a single customer prospect organization that I ever discussed with that besides Microsoft did not also bring up at least 3 or 4 other important sources of telemetry that they would like to be part of the scope. Most frequently, those can be network-related assets such as firewalls, IPSs, SASE or cloud proxy solutions, other cloud providers, as I was mentioning earlier, or even email security or identity solutions. If we now move one level above, we will bring all that data that I was discussing about both telemetry, raw telemetry, and alerts into the Taegis XDR platform. And Taegis is cloud native and perhaps the first and the most advanced truly open XDR on the market. Our SOC and our incident response teams use Taegis for running our services, but customers also get unrestricted access to the platform, the features, and of course, the data that they choose to send to the platform. Everything is completely transparent. There are 2 main areas that I would like to talk about with respect to Taegis. First of all, Taegis was purposely developed to facilitate detection and response across the entire IT landscape of our customers. So if we now look on the left-hand side, we see that as telemetry and alerts come into the platform, we do not take anything for granted, but we start to put them through our own detection capabilities. We have advanced detectors, we have threat intelligence that is infused into the platform. We call it actionable threat intelligence, and we update that mostly on a daily basis. We put a score on top of the alerts that come in, as well as the alerts that we trigger, so that in the end we are able to prioritize what's indeed critical from what's less critical. We filter out false positives and benigns. So the platform itself is able to make sense of the input that comes into it, cross-correlate it, and then really highlight the alerts that matter. And if we look on the right-hand side, we also have a number of capabilities that bring us closer to what you would actually expect from a SIEM solution. Because the goal of Taegis XDR is, of course, to do detection and response, but also to give you the opportunity to not need another SIEM or log management solution. And for that, we have developed capabilities in the area of, first of all, data retention. We're going to store all the data that we ingest for 12 months by default, and you're going to have access to it. We will allow you to create custom alert rules. That's the equivalent of custom use cases from a SIEM world. We will provide you with predefined playbooks in terms of automation orchestration, but also give you the opportunity to create custom playbooks. And of course, searching and reporting throughout all of the data that you decide to send into Taegis. Last but not least, we have the services there. And there we see a combination of automated and analyst-driven triage and investigation. And we strongly believe that in order to be successful, you need both. Automate what you know to be malicious or on the contrary benign, based on experience, research, machine learning, but make sure that you have human expertise to investigate those more advanced threats that might not be so easy to immediately categorize. And for such advanced threats, we have an SLA of 60 minutes to do a full in-context investigation. And what that means is that we don't only stop at looking into the initial alert, which we call the genesis alert, but we start to pivot around the various entities that we see within an alert, such as users, email addresses, IP addresses, host names, to try to understand what those have been up to for the past few days, weeks, months, depending on the specific type of alert. And that context is what really helps us decide this is true positive or this might be benign or false positive. Our customers also have 24/7 access to our SOC and our analysts live within 90 seconds. And if we go back to one of the questions from the beginning, if I have a question, if I need help, is there someone to support? The answer is yes, and that happens within 90 seconds. You will have a real analyst to assist with security-related questions. However, we do not only wait for an alert to trigger or a threat actor to make their presence known. For those advanced threats that are able to circumvent preventive and detective measures, we actively hunt. And let's say that you do get hit. Let's face it, I do not believe there is any organization out there that can mark themselves as 100% safe from cyber threats. Well, we also include, as Stacy already mentioned, unlimited response for all of the assets that we monitor for you, and all of that bundled into the MDR service. I spend a lot of time talking to customers about architecture, but Stacy, you do a lot of our case studies, so maybe you can share what sets Secureworks apart based on those conversations.
Absolutely. So one of my favorite parts is talking to customers after they've got up and running and really understand what sets Secureworks apart. And I think between both of our sessions, we probably hit on a lot of this. And I'd also like to recognize not every MDR provider is equal. I was just on a call with the Gartner analyst, and they track 50 different MDR providers. I would estimate when you think about some of the regional solution sets out there, there's probably 200 to 300. So we kind of put on average, these are the things that we offer that we don't see. Stefan, you hit on it hard. One of the key differentiators that I do believe Secureworks and value add for our customers is that ability to either chat inside the application or pick up a phone call and in under 90 seconds, talk to a Secureworks analyst. And that happens 24/7, unfiltered, unlimited. You don't have to wait for a ticket to be responded. They are there, not only in time of need, but even if you have a question or understanding. Many of our customers use this to up-level and upskill some of their own security teams. That multi-EDR agent support is absolutely critical. In fact, we find that 60% of our customers use more than one EDR agent. And many of our customers use our own. And we have our own Taegis agent, which is an EDR solution, and it's bundled into the MDR cost, so no additional cost. So if you're looking to add support for Mac or Linux, things that Defender may not cover, we have your back. We also have wide support for non-Microsoft telemetry. I don't think I have to hit on this, Stefan. You covered it very clearly. And the great part is we also offer SDKs and APIs. So if we don't have the out-of-the-box integration, we can work with you to pull in that telemetry through custom parsers and integrations. We have in-depth integrations as we've identified throughout Microsoft and the Azure environments. We're pulling in all of that telemetry. And then we're adding our own layer of intelligence, detections, countermeasures on top of based on our knowledge. We also, and something I don't think we hit on, is within our MDR offering, we offer 12 months of data retention at no additional cost. If you want up to 5, we do have offerings for that as well. We have a lot of customers that have retired their log management solution and instead use our own because, as Stefan pointed out, you can query it, you can look for it. It provides all of that historical record. Another key area is Stefan really hit on the overall Taegis architecture, but the UI in which our own global SOC uses is the same UI, the same tooling that all of our customers use. Sometimes if you work with some of these other solutions that have built on custom tooling, all you see is a dashboard. But with us, your analyst team can work as much or as little within the technology as they desire. In fact, we've had customers that have completely removed the service and just used the Taegis XDR platform over time. We hit on the unlimited incident response, and I can't say enough that this is one of those key aspects of should an incident happen or when it happens, having a team that can do privileged engagements as well as a whole other slew of expertise is absolutely critical. And then the big key factor is we include a lot within our pricing, as you heard, but we price by endpoint. So it's a very predictable pricing model. When organizations look at maybe Sentinel or others, as Stefan called out earlier, it's a consumption-based, and it's hard to predict consumption. With us, it's all based on endpoint, easy to monitor, and fully transparent. That really provides that lower total cost of ownership. To highlight, I just wanted to run through 2 case studies very quickly and very distinct use cases. So the first is really a small to medium-sized organization. They had 1,300 employees. They were in real estate housing, and they elected to standardize on Microsoft E5, but they knew they needed help. They knew that they needed an extension of their SOC that could provide that 24/7 monitoring. They had a very limited security team. It was great that they got the security products as they felt for free with their E5 license from IT, but they didn't have the team to really maximize the licensing. And so what they were really looking for was a partner who would do all of the integrations into a single platform so they could have broad visibility, and then a team that would really monitor that for threats, identify threats, investigate, and kick off a whole slew of response actions on their behalf. At the end of the day, they were looking for an organization to really be their SOC when it came to managed detection and response. They ultimately selected Secureworks, not only because of our global SOC capabilities, which was important to them, even as a small organization. They didn't want to wait if something was found or detected in off hours. Also, they selected us because of the lowest total cost of ownership. They had endpoints that were not supported by Defender, and they were able to use our own agent. They liked the 12 months of data retention that was logged in. So at the end of the day, we were able to provide them that overall SOC capability and services for managed detection and response, but also provide some of those add-on things underneath in the technology stack to really support and improve their overall security posture. Now I'll go into the next case study, and a little different. This is a global financial company with over 10,000 employees, so on the larger side. And for them, they were at the point where they knew they needed a partner to help with the overall 24/7 detection response, but they were really debating, should they invest in Sentinel and a partner that builds out that on top of Sentinel, or was there other options for them? The reason they were concerned with Sentinel is they had some experience with SIEMs in the past, and they knew that it could be a pricey and unpredictable cost model. They also know that it required a lot of configuration, not only to get up and running, but throughout, as they wanted to configure. This was an organization that had a variety of different departments. They were growing, expanding, they were acquiring in different regions. And so they wanted to make sure they had something that could fit their business model today and in the future without a lot of work. They ultimately did a POC with Secureworks, and one of the things they found and really liked was all of the out-of-the-box integrations that Stefan talked about. It required very little tuning, and they were not only able to integrate across Microsoft, but some of their non-Microsoft environments, such as AWS. They also really liked the fact that it had the Taegis agent. They had a number of agents they were using throughout the organization, and they felt they could retire some of those agents and lean on and really build a strategy of Defender plus Taegis. So at the end of the day, very similar to the last conversation, you can read the bullets on here, but it really came down to they were able to select Secureworks, reduce their costs, and not necessarily have to go the Sentinel route, but they still got all the benefits of the 24/7 monitoring, a single platform that was integrating technology sets within both Microsoft and outside. And they were able to leverage that to make sure that at the end of the day, they were finding the threats that mattered and responding quickly. One of the things I do want to call out, and we have talked to organizations, I just gave you examples of a case study that is, on the smaller or larger side, is we do support organizations of all size globally. And if we do have customers that are using Sentinel, we can absolutely kind of federate and leverage some of that data. So it doesn't have to be a Secureworks or Sentinel, but there are opportunities to work together. Now, with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Stefan. And what are some of the takeaways? Because I think often you get involved in conversations later in the decision cycle. And it's like, if you could talk to someone when they're just at the beginning part, what would you offer them advice on?
Yeah, that's exactly true. And I do spend my days talking to customers, but a bit later in the decision process, if I would get the opportunity to engage sooner, even before they make up their mind about the direction that they want to go into, there are three things that I would highlight. First of all, dear organization, prospect, customer, you have a Microsoft or Azure first strategy and leverage or think of leveraging E5. And that's great. Please do that. However, did you think about the costs and the effort needed to achieve full visibility for your non-Microsoft assets and environments? How will you correlate? How will you consolidate your network telemetry, other third-party cloudware applications, non-Microsoft identity or email security solutions? And let's say once you have achieved that, do you have a team of experts able to triage analysis, investigate, hunt, and timely respond to threats 24/7? And if the answer is no, because let's face it, the majority of the organizations do not have that, wouldn't you say that choosing for a party that is a leader in this space, in the services space, is at least as important, if not even more important, than choosing for the right technology? And finally, I have personally had the opportunity to work with various SIEM solutions, including Microsoft Sentinel, for at least 5 to 6 years before joining Secureworks. And at that time, I honestly thought that SIEM solutions were and will be the holy grail of cybersecurity for decades to come. However, practice shows otherwise. And organizations started to gradually see the drawbacks to a SIEM-based approach that revolve around complexity and costs, and eventually not achieving their goal, which was to improve their security posture rather than spend endless time and budgets on never-ending SIEM projects. So what I would really advise is take a step back and ask yourself, are you really one of those organizations that can benefit and leverage a SIEM solution, such as, for example, Microsoft Sentinel, or is there a solution that perhaps better aligns to your use cases and your desired security outcomes?
Stefan, I think that's great advice, right? I think at any point in time, the security landscape, both by how threat actors are evolving, as well as the solutions that organizations are bringing in, always requires everyone to take pause and really identify what's most important for them. And I think this is great advice as organizations start to look at consolidation strategy, whether it be Microsoft or even other platforms, whether it be Palo Alto and the rest. Very rarely does consolidation mean one vendor. And I think that's where we're here to help. So if you do have any more interest or are curious to learn more, maybe see a demo of what we just talked about, please visit secureworks.com/Microsoft, where you can find additional information. Also, feel free to comment in the chat, and we're happy to send any follow-up. Stefan, we were lucky enough where we had a few questions come in here at the end. We don't have a lot of time, though, so I'm going to kind of pull out 3 themes that I think came across in many of the questions that did come through. The first is really around, talking about unpredictable costs as it relates to Sentinel. And someone said, as far as they know, Microsoft provides free data ingest for all E5 customers. Can you reference, Stefan, how we're talking about the free data ingest, but the unpredictable cost and how that lines up, please?
That's a very good question and a very interesting topic. And we ourselves have looked into that. And we tried to understand, based on customer environments, what really is the impact of that free data grant that Microsoft provides with certain levels of licensing in terms of Microsoft Sentinel. And indeed, for example, for E5 customers, you do have a grant of 5 megabytes of data per user per day for a specific set of data sources, such as Defender-related alerts and Azure AD audit logs. On top of that, there are certain data sources that you will always get for free, such as Azure activity logs or Office 365 audit logs. However, when you do the math, when you look at what we were talking about earlier, which is the extended hybrid environment, where we look at network-related data sources, which we know from experience are the ones that produce the most logs and the most telemetry. Those things that Sentinel provides for free to certain customers on certain levels of licensing is literally a fraction. It's not even 10%. And we did that calculation, again, based on real environments, based on precise volumes of data coming from various log sources. And our conclusion is that that grant on its own is not going to make a significant impact in terms of costs.
Thanks, Stefan. And I think that's something, if you're interested in, we've actually have quite a number of slides and price models that we can kind of walk through with you for your own environment and help prove that out to make sure it does fit your use case. The next one, and there's a couple of these that have come through, sometimes with names, sometimes with not. So I'll grab this, Stefan, and you can add on. But one of the questions is, how does Secureworks compare to other Microsoft specialists around MDR? And I had that one slide that I called out. But when I get asked this question, I often like to break it down into, one, when it comes to Microsoft, very few organizations have even one Microsoft MVP, if not multiple, that are dedicated and providing that extra layer of intelligence. So when we talk about the fact that we've invested in Microsoft to make sure we can support our customers, both at an integration and intelligence, a countermeasure, we are kind of all in. And that is something that I think is unique when it comes to just Microsoft. But then when you really broaden it, I like to put it into kind of 3 core categories. It's really one, the superior detection. So we talked about the fact that we can detect threats with our own added layer of detections, both coming from the intelligence we gather, machine learning, and that goes across a variety of data types. we really make sure that we weed out the noise. In fact, we find that 99.6% of point solution alerts are false positives. So we weed out the false positives and we identify the things that others may miss. The second comes in unmatched response. And in unmatched response, it's that less than 90-second access to a security analyst. It's the unlimited response that we do for anything that we're monitoring. And it's having the backing of a true incident response team that is doing thousands of engagements over time that are providing that learnings. Our incident response team doesn't just support MDR, we actually handle any emergency incident response. And we work with some of the largest cyber insurers and are on their boards and certified. And then the last piece is really that, no vendor lock-in, I like to call it. So we're open without compromise. Not only can we integrate across Microsoft, but a variety of other stacks and even custom integrations is needed. The fact that, what our customers often tell me is I select Secureworks because I know you can protect and defend our entire attack surface today, but also in the future. I have the freedom to choose if I want a different endpoint agent, a different web service, a different email service. And I know that Secureworks is there to support me. And that flexibility is really critical to them. Stefan, anything to add in? I kind of went through some of them quickly again.
No, I think you really made the point with those. So no, not really.
All right. Well, running out of time, so I have one more for you, Stefan, and I thought maybe give you kind of the technical one that we're seeing. And it really comes down to when it comes to Azure, and you have specific resources such as Azure SQL or SQL, Kubernetes, Key Vault. Right? How do you monitor all of those different elements? So in this presentation, I think we say Azure holistically. We've got some more of the deep analysts here to know that Azure is much more than one thing. How do we help support customers that are looking at those different telemetry type feeds?
And that's, again, a very good question. And it's going to give me the opportunity to highlight both Secureworks as well as Microsoft. So let me first say that if you have a log source, it's unlikely that we will not find a way to get it into Taegis. And for those specific Azure resources, we will find a way to get the data through an event hub or through blob storage. So we will find a way to get the raw telemetry. However, from a security monitoring standpoint, I always like to say that it's good to also look at the features that Microsoft is able to provide. And in this case, what I sometimes advise customers is to leverage Defender for Cloud, because Defender for Cloud is perfectly positioned to monitor and trigger alerts exactly on those sorts of Azure resources. And what we will do, we will take those alerts, we will put them through our own detection capabilities, through our own intelligence, and very importantly, through our detection and response service. And we will really be able to make sense of what those alerts mean and inform you whether it is true positive or false positive. So those are just two ways in which we can address those sorts of resources.
Well, great. Thanks, Stefan. And I like the advice you gave. And this is honestly the advice our teams give over time, right? Which is, when is it time to pull in maybe the element of Microsoft or others, because they're going to provide some of that best consolidation of the telemetry? And where is it that we can help? We actually do quarterly security posture reviews with all of our customers, focusing on how can you improve overall posture? And often it's around what is the right telemetry to pull in? And those are the things that we're here to help and value add. Well, Stefan, thanks for your time today. I hope everyone that joined us got value out of the session. And again, please check out more details at secureworks.com/Microsoft, or feel free to put your name in the chat and we'll make sure that Stefan or someone on his team follows up with you. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks all.